Hi, everyone. Welcome. Happy Friday. Some familiar names and names here. I see VJ. VJ, we have your question in the T to go first. Oh, we have Shannon. Shannon is our question of the framework, so we will definitely dig into that. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Everyone, just a moment to get connected to audio here. All right, we are a couple minutes past the half hour, so I do want to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Happy to have you. These are our office hours that we conduct every Friday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern with a different pragmatic instructor. And today we have Diane Pearson. Hi, Diane.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for being with us. And just before we get started, I do have to give a shout out to our pragmatic community. We are 1 year old this week. Woohoo! Just for everybody who doesn't know, this is so much blood, sweat, and tears that went into this. I wanted to share a couple of stats. We are a strong group of almost 7,000. Being the analytics nerd I am, we've had over 12,000 logins. We've made over 2,000 personal connections. But what I'm more excited about is that out of 400 questions that were asked in the pack, there were over 3,500 answers shared. So, that really is that place to go to for that peer-to-peer support. Folks are willing to, share their knowledge and share their intel. So no matter how you train with us, you do get a lifetime membership, and make sure that you take advantage of that. You can, talk to us at community at pragmaticinstitute.com to make sure that we get you set up there. But in the meantime, we did have our questions submitted prior to. We also want to remind you that best live question of the session gets lunch on us to their favorite restaurants. Diane, you will be the one who decides that. It could be however you see fit, but we do have a couple folks that I want to admit here, we'll get started. So if you have that live question, you can send it to me privately. You can put it in the chat, but we are certainly here to talk product. So I do see a couple folks on the call who did pre-submit questions that I do think that should categorize as being live questions. I think that they just happen to be a little bit more, type A like me, right? They're planners. So this first one, Diane, comes from VJ. VJ is on the call. And VJ says, I'm taking foundations and appreciated the emphasis on identifying market problems outside in. I was curious if you have any tested ways of doing qualitative discovery research in e-commerce /B2C that is high value and repeatable, aka methods that they can be utilized sort of on a regular basis.
It's a great question, BJ. And I've got a little bit of information here, but if you want to follow up, don't hesitate. So, this is an area that I was in just a little bit in my career. I spent most of my career in B2B, but when I was consulting, I did a lot of work with B2C. So I reached out to a couple of my friends. One of them is the CEO of Subscription Insider, and a lot of her members are companies that have, whether it's subscription boxes or online products. So she's got a lot of B2C. A lot of it's subscription based, but it's also a lot of just the straight out B2C e-commerce. And I asked her, what are the latest things? What are they doing? What's working for them right now? And some of the things I got that I thought I would pass along were, right away, she said, shop alongs. And so if you've got customers who are willing to let you watch them shop, that's a great idea. And just following them through their process so you can see what they might not say. Another thing that they're doing a lot of, especially because there's not so much in person and almost nothing for the 12 months prior to about now, they're doing a lot of shopping parties and a lot of customer parties. So online virtual parties where they're doing the things that a lot of companies are doing in-house to just bring people together, like trivia. And one of the things she suggested was, instead of only doing the trivia and only having them talk about some of the things that they love about what they buy, also have them talk about their predictions. How are things going to change? So when you start thinking about research, these parties are parties for them. So have some prizes, have some giveaways, have some fun. Maybe even send them product. This is one of the things that I won't mention the company's name, but a company that's got a very big pet subscription box sent out toys for the animals that were special for the party they were having for the owners. And they did a lot of predictions. How do you see things changing? What are you going to need in the next 6 months that you didn't need in the last 6 months? Shopping behaviors changed radically during COVID, but they're evolving, not necessarily back, but onward. And so those were great things. Now, there's all sorts of technology that you've probably already heard of if you're in this space, things like stimulus testing, responsive dialogue. You can go to companies like Qualtrics to get digital customer experience and have those highly interactive discussions with them as they move through your site. So things like, you didn't buy anything, was there a reason? Or did you like that thing? Did you not like that thing? You can ask very small touch questions that are almost like that qualitative discussion you would have in person. So those were some of the highlights and some of the things that I got most excited about. But I want to ask you, do you have a follow-up to that? Because that was a very broad industry that you talked about. So maybe there are some things that are a little bit more specialized. So I'd welcome a follow-up if you've got one.
No, so no particular follow-up, but I actually think a lot of that does make sense. And I do actually like, it sounds like there's maybe an emphasis on the observation, the qualitative observation of what customers are doing as they go through the purchase or shopping journey. And I think I appreciate that. I think for me, it's just a question of how do I, more broadly, how do I just identify and recruit people? Because I don't think our company is quite set up to have the resources to do that at scale. So part of this is maybe just me personally, just some like individual personal outreach to find people and customers to do this kind of research with.
You know, one of the beauties might be there are fairly inexpensive methods to reach consumers. I had a consumer product very briefly at one point, and one of the things I did notice was that you can reach out and begin a discussion on things like SurveyMonkey. Now, surveys are not optimal, as you know, for qualitative research, but you can get to people who are not part of your existing customer base, which is the benefit. That can prompt you to ask questions of your customer base. The other thing is you might be able to find a local organization that does outreach so that you can get beyond your existing customer base to the people in your markets that you don't necessarily know and invite them to these parties. People like free stuff. Even in B2B, we talk about that in B2B. Never underestimate the power of a gift card. In B2C, that's just, I don't know, tenfold. Anybody hate a gift card? Just show of hands. Who like, nah, got to pass up the gift card. So just little things like a gift card, anything like that. But just make it substantial, because that would be a marketing expense versus versus product. So I would treat it that way.
So no, thank you. This is helpful.
Oh, great! I'm glad. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you, BJ. Hopefully that was helpful. And again, at any time, folks that are on the call, feel free to send me a question for Diane. You can pop it to me privately, pop it in the chat. But in the meantime, Diane, I have your next one here, who comes from Trista. Trista says, I'm being tasked with creating user personas in my new role, and I've never done this before. Help, in all caps. Can you walk me through how I should start and any resources I should be looking towards?
Wow, Trista, it's a huge question, and it's a foundational question. So I'm really glad you're being tasked with it, but it is a huge job. So in the real world, one of the things that I would ask is avoid that fire drill persona. A lot of organizations, and I've seen it happen before, where somebody in the organization gets together with somebody else outside of the organization, and that person says, oh, we just built our personas and they're fabulous. And your boss comes back and says, oh my gosh, you have to build these. Personas are going to be an ongoing dialogue with the market. So don't treat it like you have to get everything at once. This can be a big panic, but what I would say is make a plan. And first off, you said personas. So if you're looking at multiples, maybe you have 5 products and you think, well, gosh, there are 5 users of these products. For example, a sales rep, a sales director, the head of marketing, they all use the product in a different way. Where do I start with this? So the first thing I would advise you do is make a list. Make a list of all the personas you believe use your product today. And if it's product or products, just make a list. So get yourself a little organized first. And then the second step is, how much do we already know about these personas? Do we have information? I mean, if you've been in business for even a little while, you've got some experience in the market. What I would say is gather up what you've already got. And that includes your sales team's experience, customer service, even legal, if there's a lot of back and forth on your contract. So sweep up what you've already got. So that's cheap, it's easy, it's already done. And start assigning that to the personas that it fits to. Who do they talk to? What experience does this drive? So now you've already got all the information you already have organized around those personas. Then start filling in the gaps. Where to start? Which persona is the one that worries your leadership team the most, that you have the least information on? Do you have big questions that haven't been answered already? Start there. How do I know that? So I read a book. I read a lot of depressing stuff. So I read this book all about the influenza of 1918 during the pandemic. So I don't know, glutton for punishment. But what I will say is, one of the phrases that struck me in this book was how the epidemiologists and the doctors were trying to figure out what was going on. And they said, what can I know and how can I know it? And that's really your next step toward your persona research, which is, what are your hypotheses? What do you think is true? How could you find out for sure? Get out there and have those conversations with the market. How do you do that? What are some of the sources around that? Everything from just talk to them to what do they read? What associations do they belong to? What trade shows and conferences are they attending, virtually or physically? Do this slowly, allot a certain amount of time every day. And if it can only be 15 minutes, let it be 15 minutes. Legislation, regulation, litigation, what's going on in their world? What is the news of their day? And then ask them for the future thinking elements, because we are in such an interesting time, if you will, the Chinese curse. Ask them what their predictions are. What are they planning on now? How are things changing again as we begin to emerge into this post-COVID world, hopefully, certainly post-COVID pandemic, or at least let's hope so. Those are some of the things I would do. Put together a method so it doesn't seem overwhelming, so you get real information that you really need, and also have a research backlog so your leadership and everybody in your organization can see that you're doing this. You've got your scarce resources focused on the things that will get you the most information, and you've got a timeline. That's what I would do. That's been the roadmap I followed with my teams and with the groups that I consulted with for the past lots of years.
Yeah, no, I love what you say about showing your work, right? So they can kind of see where your head's going, and then also that working out loud, right? And we've had a product chat surrounding that and how beneficial that can be. I wanted to give you a quick one here from Carrie, who's on the call. Diane, she asked, does Pragmatic provide professional selling skills training for B2B organizations? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
We don't, but what we do is, first of all, there are some of us who have led sales teams, briefly we're part of sales teams. And so we do have some insights on that. Some of us more than others. Everybody's done a lot. I mean, this is just the most incredibly deep group of people I've ever worked with. And that extends to these folks like Callie and Connor as well. But so you can ask us questions, but right now we don't have training for sales teams. What we do have that I would love to have more salespeople come to as part of the launch team is Launch. Launch is a great class for sales teams to come and provide their insights on what sales needs as part of their enablement during launch. So right now we are not focused on that group, but if you've got a group of go-to-market team members and sales team members that want a great group discussion, group methodology, I would say Launch is a great class to have them come to.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Diane, this next one comes for you from Shanann. Am I saying your name right? Is it Shannon? Is it Shanann? I want to be sure I'm being mindful of the pronunciation.
Shannon. This is my mom spelled it wrong, Callie.
That's okay. No, I mean, there's many a spelling. I mean, everybody, I always laugh because Shannon, everybody, I've known more pets with my name Callie than like human beings ever. So I'm like, what was that about? But still love you, mom and dad. All right, so Shannon is on the call here, Diane. She has one. She kind of wants you to walk her through the evolution of the pragmatic framework. She's seen several different versions stemming from those earlier editions that read as more like tactical based rather than the execution based, and shifting things like roadmaps where that they used to be under marketing. So any like visual walkthrough would be helpful to kind of connect those pieces from her previous training that she may have taken a few years back.
So yeah, and Shannon, this was a great question. All of these are terrific questions, by the way. There's no such thing as a bad question, but these are so much fun. And I will tell you that we all the instructors got involved in this, as well as a lot of people at headquarters, because we said, we don't actually have an asset that walks us through the narrative. We have internal elements. We had a couple things years ago. So I went through and I looked at the frameworks from about 2009 when there was a big change until today. And I just created some of my own observations. So these are not an official narrative at all, but as I went through it and I talked to some of the other instructors and some of the people in the company who've been here a while. I've been here for 5 years, talked to one of the instructors who's been here for 15 years. So these are just some observations. And I put this together literally while we were waiting for all of you to get on the call. So it's sloppy, but I've thought about it overnight and pulled some things together. And I'll tell you, this was a lot of fun. And I suspect we're going to put something together a little bit more formal on this. So coming soon to a podcast near you is probably going to be this evolution at some point. Let me give you I'm going to call them highlights. Not quite sure that they are, but we'll see what you think. So I'm going to, let's see here. All right. I'm going to pop this up as a presentation. So everybody's seeing this right now? You got a presentation up? All right, good. So like I said, these are my observations, as well as some of the materials that I was able to get from our headquarters team. And what I want to say is the themes that I saw when I looked at all of these different frameworks, and these are just back to 2009. I was going to dig through some of mine. I thought, gosh, I know I've got my original one from class when I went to class. We don't want to go that far back. But there were some definite themes here. And the themes that were driving change certainly included things that were pretty basic and straightforward, like changes in market terminology. Also, though, there were a couple of our evolutions as we improved the framework to better reflect some of the tenets that we had all along. Things like product managers and product marketers as strategic. And so the initial frameworks were all intending to show that, but as the framework evolved, you can see how it really evolved to reinforce that. Also, continued precision around markets and problems versus the building of products. And that also led us to this escalating importance of buyers and their process and problems. So this was all started by somebody who led product management teams. And we realized that this was an ecosystem of buyers and users. And so you can see that evolution beginning with that 2009 framework, and also our expanding influence on the business world. So some of these later just tiny tweaks are actually quite significant in the way they forecast to our markets who we are. So way back when, if you look at the 2009 framework, this was a very big change. And the change primarily came along in that in the categories of activities. So the categories themselves were streamlined. These used to be things, if you look at strategic to tactical, and Shannon, this is where your tactical came in. It used to go from left to right. It used to say market analysis, quantitative analysis, product strategy, product planning, program strategy, sales readiness, and then support. And that was really, first of all, strategy was kind of confusing all throughout that. As a matter of fact, you had one that was labeled strategy kind of in the middle. It was also very much about product. And so you can see that this streamlined, but it also brought forward the idea is that that product leadership is really market strategy. Also, the big thing that happened in 2009 was market problems went to the top left corner of the framework because that's where it belonged. It is the context by which everything else is defined. Some of these things feed the understanding of market problems, and then everything else contributes to solving them. So that was a very big change then. When you go forward, you see some tweaking in 2013, change strategy to focus. You can see instead of strategic and tactical, this is where, Shannon, we went to strategy to execution. The reasoning behind this, not really sure. So we're actually looking at that now. I think it was more about activity-based or what actually happened versus strategic and tactical. Tactical is more of a, I don't know, just a generic terminology. Next step, really not too different, but what you see here is, again, that holistic change from just technology into the fact that the product team is really thinking about the market and their problems, not just building them a product or technology, but rather asset assessment might be things like experience, consulting resources. So you can start to see that subtle shift toward it's not just the tech anymore. It's really about what does the market need. 2016 to 2017, not much change. Here was a very big change in 2018. Couple things that happened here. First of all, we formalized, small thing, but we formalized our curriculum by putting that icon on the bottom. But you can really see the changes in that left-hand side, or I'm sorry, that right-hand side of the framework about the buyer and about the emphasis on the business elements of what the product team is responsible for. Revenue, the financial aspects, our contribution from a strategic perspective to the organization. Not sales process, but alignment. Not collateral, but content, broader terms. Presentations and demos went to programs, operations, events. The support that we give is organization-wide. And so you can see where a lot of the evolution had started over there on that left-hand side of the framework. We're starting to go back and evolve that right-hand side too. So this was a really exciting time, this 2018 version. As we get into 2019, 20, and 21, what you're starting to see is our shift as an organization. And so you look at this now, again, subtle shift, but for those of you who are go-to-market people, we pulled the colors off of those curriculum, and we started to push that back because we knew what was coming. You can also see we changed it from technology products up there in that upper right-hand corner to products people want to buy. And that's because one of the things we realized was that our market was not only technology companies, but first of all, technology companies weren't really technology companies anymore. They were really companies providing services and goods and life improvements, whether it was B2B or B2C, through technology. And so what we really realized is we are all about solving problems. Yeah, we may enable those with technology, or you may do that, but it's really about whatever we're doing to solve the problems of the market. And then as we came into 2020, we evolved into 2021. One of the reasons that icon has disappeared, I suspect, is because all of you know we recently launched a design class. We have piloted classes for product teams and data science, and there is more to come. Lots of exciting things happening. So as you can see, this evolution has gone from who the product team is, who we are as Pragmatic, and who we all become together. And so as I went through this, I thought, gosh, this is really a pretty cool story. And like I said, this was a really spur of the moment thing, but these observations to me and to the rest of the instructors started to get us very jazzed about, we don't stop often enough to look at our own evolution and the evolution of our relationship with you. And it's a pretty cool journey.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And like
it
I
helps
said,
me reconcile like when I had training in 2016 and like today. I also kind of view, as I presented the framework to my team, because I'm in a new role, I'm a strategic product manager. My counterpart is the tactical product manager. Mm-hmm. And it helped us walk through who does what. I wonder if there's like when I facilitated our discussion meeting, I kind of felt like we should start like, this is a framework, but is there anything in this framework that we need to add that we do that isn't in here yet, or that we need to delete because we just don't do that? I mean, we're not a 10,000 employee organization. So,
and hey, that's, we offer the best practices through research and a lot of experience, a lot of constant engagement with the market. But also you go back and make this your own. And so when it comes right down to it, I love that evolution. But the next step is always, how do you evolve this to make your organization successful? Every organization is a little different. I did the same thing when I was in the field, but using that tool, especially that gap analysis, to do that role clarification, worth its weight. It's just fabulous.
That's what we're doing right now is we have a sub team of us that are doing the gap analysis the next week. So it's been really helpful, and I appreciate the history. I do think you guys should have like a podcast on it or something on the website.
I think we should too. I mean, we really all got kind of excited about this. It was just like, oh my gosh, yeah. And they said, well, I can tell you the story behind it. It might not be the official story. And I said, yeah, I think this. So it's been fun, and I think pulling this together into something might be really cool. So yeah, stay tuned. Might happen.
Great. Yeah, no, that's so great. And I love that we record these live to YouTube because, you asked for the evolution, and boy did Diane give it to you. We had a lot of internal chatter about it. So I agree. I think it would make for a great podcast. And I just happen to know the people that create them. So hopefully we can get that on the book soon. But great question, Shannon.
This is Alika. I wanted to share with Shannon that we actually have been using the Pragmatic framework for over a year now. But we actually pivoted from that diagram to a toll gate process. I'm actually going to share it in the chat. I couldn't just copy and paste. But what we did is we found that very junior product managers, because we had a lot of people that were clinicians, I'm in the healthcare space, became product managers. The Pragmatic framework visual was too busy for them. They got overwhelmed immediately because there were too many boxes. But once we added this toll gate view, and we've slotted all the boxes into kind of more a list of where it falls in the toll gate process, we've actually had better adoption and usage. Because like I said, what the framework doesn't tell you is when to do what. But when you map it to a toll gate process, all of a sudden now you slot it of when you're doing, the market analysis and the win-loss to, when you're bringing something to the market. But I'll share the visual. And that was a very powerful shift and pivot for us because we've had, like I said, more adoption at the product manager level, which is where it needs to be. Not leaders saying you're going to go follow this, but product managers need to be the rock stars, not the leaders. So I just wanted to share.
That makes sense, like representing things differently for different. I can understand a person who hasn't had all the Pragmatic training, seeing the diagram and being overwhelmed because it's not something that they've had all of it. But yeah, that perspective of creating something that it's the same thing, but it represents it differently. I'm in education, so that makes sense to me. People learn differently.
Well, in education and life sciences and healthcare, definitely have a lot of people coming from the practitioner side into the product side. And so I think this is great. And it's Alika, is that correct? All I'm seeing is ALV, but I think you said your name was Alika. Well, I think sharing this.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute and I had to get myself off. Yes, Alika.
Why is she not hearing me?
I'm hearing you. I just had to get off mute.
Oh yeah, no worries. Thank you. But I would also encourage you to share that in the pack because, making this your own and implementing it in the way that works for you is something that we just all find so exciting, and it inspires us as well. So I think that is just wonderful. And everybody is a little different. So you take those principles, you use them because yeah, roughly speaking, from left to right, that's the general process that we would like you to follow. But if it just doesn't make a lot of sense in that shape, whatever does make sense, that's great. Just taking this and making it your own. We're so excited to see that.
Well, and I think, the other reason why we did that is because if you think about, I'm kind of big into 2 up, 2 down, 2 across in an organization. Actually, leaders have heard of a toll gate process before, right? When you get to a senior director and above, you've been around to know about a toll gate process. So when you take the framework and you put it into a toll gate process, it resonates with them, and ultimately they have to be kind of the champion of that too, right? And the sponsorship. So it's a visual, it's a 1-slide visual that it's not got so many boxes. I think boxes just, even leaders were kind of questioning, well, that's a lot. How are we going to do all that? But once you put it into a toll gate, it even resonated with them.
That's great. Yeah, that's really great. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Great. Thanks, Alika. Good to see you. Hope you're well.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. So Diane, I have another pre-submitted question for you. This one is about scorecards, and it comes from Fletcher, who says, I'd like to implement scorecards for our product organization. What are some KPIs that are leading indicators that might be interesting for us to evaluate?
The KPIs, one of the things about KPIs is it really should start with what are your strategic goals as an organization. So you should be responding to your strategic goals with whatever your KPIs are. The reason it's difficult to give people a good demo scorecard is because those can be awfully specific, and they should be. So that would be my first overall piece of advice, would be align with your leadership on what your 2 or 3 organizational strategic goals are, and then respond to those with your KPIs. As a matter of fact, put that strategic goal at the top and tie those directly to that strategic goal. Usually when you've got the strategic goal, that will help. So for example, if your strategic goal is to open new markets, then talk about in specific either countries or markets, size of business, consumer demographic, whatever it happens to be, talk about how many conversations you're having with them, how many trials you're having with them. If your goal is to increase your customer intimacy or your value to your existing customer base, that's going to be things like adoption and advocacy. If you are a startup, you are much more worried about top line than bottom line. If you're in a well-established, mature industry, you're probably worried more about bottom line even than top line, because there's just not a lot more growth at the top. So what I would say is, I'm sorry I can't give you the magic bullet on that, but I would just say start with those strategic goals, and chances are the things you think of to respond to those will be the right ones.
Great. Yeah, and I see that there are a few folks out there in YouTube land with us. So Fletcher, if you're out there, pop in. We're happy to clarify. We always say these office hours are for you guys. So, come late, leave early, no worries. And then Alika just put that in the chat. Thank you for sharing. So we have about a couple more minutes, and I want to direct you to Caden's question, Diane, who says, what do you think are the most important principles for being a product owner? He has an upcoming interview next week at a tech company, and they specifically asked him about that, and he takes her helpful. He really wants this one.
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, our fingers are crossed for you. Good luck with that. It's always exciting. And I've hired a lot of product managers. I hired a lot of people in product teams, and I've obviously worked with a lot of people who've done that. So I'm going to tell you what I looked for and what I know they looked for in these organizations. First of all, I always call it be passionately dispassionate. Your job is a dichotomy. You have to be passionate about market problems, but you also have to be dispassionate about your products. And this is one of those things that I think is really important, that your job is to solve market problems. And usually if you go into an organization and say, I'm going to advocate for the products that solve the problems of the market, if it looks like we've got a product that just isn't doing that anymore, I'm going to talk to the market and figure out how we either can or what we should do next. And that's a really important piece of it. So the way to do that, of course, is you're going to go get market data. And one of the things I say in classes all the time is product teams aren't the experts on the market. They're not the people who advocate for the market because they're the smartest or because they personally know the most about the market. It's because you've got all the data. And so if they ask you, how would you start, is I'm going to go both outside and inside the organization, and I'm going to get the data and I'm going to see what it says. My skill is gathering that up, aggregating, organizing, analyzing. And if you've done that across industries, I frankly leaned toward hiring people that were not part of the industry because they tend to have some confirmation bias. And they tend to be very, very, very tactical, which is good for some jobs, but not for others. So depending on what you're interviewing for, I would emphasize all or both of those things. Industry experience is good. It's wonderful. If you can bring that ability to gather knowledge and not insert your own all the time. And that's going to come back to that third piece, which is data. And I'll tell you, data at this point, we have a sacred trust to our organization to bring knowledge to them. And that means aggregating information, which really is a sacred trust. The first time you get caught manipulating data, saying something like it is data when it's not, that's when they lose trust in you. If you're not listening to everybody, they will lose trust in you. If you're not perfectly willing to justify where you got information, and these are the things you should share with that leader that you're talking to, that I come in expecting to listen to others, and I have a responsibility to share with them the context under which I made decisions. I think that those are the pieces that in any industry we're all looking for. You work well with others because you bring that sacred trust. You listen to your markets because you bring your experience, but also that passionate dispassion. And you're not gonna get too attached to any one product. You're gonna get attached to your market and your leadership. So fourth thing, how are you going to drive their objectives? So always remember that you are responding to your leadership's objectives. One of the things I did a lot when I was really early on was I thought, boy, you need to go my direction. Well, we're there to understand the strategic goals of our leaders and respond to those. And whatever level you're at, if you're at the VP level, it's the board. If you're at the director level, it's the VP, and so on. So that happens all the way through the process. And good luck with that. I mean, seriously, it's always exciting to find new jobs. And if you're really looking, you want it, I hope you get it.
Yeah, that's great. We're definitely rooting for you, Kate. And it's funny because we always say your opinion, although interesting, is irrelevant in my cup today, my hibiscus tea. But yeah, data is king. So I think showing that you have that knowledge and that, to your point, you can collect and really organize is going to certainly set you apart from the others. So great. Well, we have Diane for about another 5 minutes. Anyone who's on the call, feel free to pop those live questions into the chat. She will be picking the best live question towards the end of the session. But in the meantime, I have one from Kimberly. Diane, what are some?
Well, Kelly, I want to. I thought I saw Pam's hand go up. Pam, Did you have a virtual hand up, or no?
Oh no, it was just a reaction to the comment about the opinion is not important. That's right, yeah.
Okay, we love that, don't we? Everybody who takes, we love that. That was my favorite when I was a student. So.
Oh, it's
okay. So.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and that's what I think stuck with me all those years. So.
Yeah. And it's nice when you can have someone kind of say it for you, because it's like, that's hard to bring to your higher ups in your leadership, right? But it's true. So no, that's great. So Diane, I'll give you this one from Kimberly. What are some of the biggest things to keep in mind when naming a product? I know legality is certainly one of them, but anything else that we should be making sure that we're aware of sort of as they go down the process?
Oh, I love that. That's a fun question. What a good question to end on. Because yeah, first and foremost, just do something really simple like Google it. I've been in more than one organization where that hasn't happened. So just do go find out and do get your legal team involved. But after that, what is important? Certainly some of those basics, some of the things that sound very, very obvious, but like phonetics and spelling. the markets you're going to anticipate having this product in. There's from the 1960s, the Nova, the no-go in Mexico, really not a good idea for a car name. All along, things like one of the best ones I've seen recently was Soylent as a name for a nutritional supplement. I am serious. Now, for those of you who have never read the book Soylent Green or seen the movie Soylent Green, look it up. Not a good name for a food product. Just saying. So just think through those things, think through spelling and phonetics. If it's too unusual to spell, it might be too unusual to find. Suggestive names, descriptive or suggestive names tend to be better if you are new to the market, because anytime you've got a name that doesn't have a lot of meaning, you have to fill that name with meaning. And what that really means to your finance people is you got to fill it with cash, because you've got to spend a lot of money to not only have people find your product, they've got to figure out what you meant by that name. So names like Lyft are better than Uber, even though Uber was very successful. Lyft is easier for people to remember and understand. So those are the kinds of things to think about when you name a product. How much cash have you got to market it? And I would always say no acronyms, no acronyms, no acronyms. Anything with an acronym name, things like IBM and organizations that have been around for a century, they can get away with it because they've spent billions of dollars. The more unrecognizable it is, the more you have to fill that with meaning, and that means that the more you have to spend to do so. So those are some of the big tips I would give you. And do just look up things like, wow, this sounds like a really cool name, but Soylent. The Soylent rule would be my big one. Just avoid names like Soylent.
No, those are some great rules of thumb, and I think that something they can take and just sort of run with right away. So that's great. Hopefully that was helpful, Kimberly. All right, Diane, it's come to that time where we pick our best live question. I'm throwing VJ in there, even though he had to pop off. We'll get his email. We have Shannon talking about the pragmatic framework. I want to throw Alika in there with the fact that she sort of shared her resource. So it is your choice.
This is a difficult one, I'll tell you, because these were excellent questions. Been doing this for, about a year, each of us. And I'll tell you, folks, you've set the bar pretty high here. So I think I'm going to go with Shannon, because she got us all thinking. But I want to give a real honorable mention, first of all, to everybody, but especially I want to thank Alika for sharing her tool, because that always helps. It's always great to get something from the students. But Shannon, you're the one who's made us work the hardest, so you win.
Well, congrats, Shannon. Yeah, no, it's great to have you.
I'm always keeping everybody on their toes.
I like that.
And you got those awesome earrings. I'm like, I want a pair of those.
Oh, true. Yeah, seriously. It's nice to see some jolly earrings, Yeah,
I know. I love it. Well, congratulations, Shannon. We'll make sure to go ahead and send you that gift certificate to your favorite restaurant. Next time you're with us, let us know what you had. Send us a picture. I'm a foodie, so I certainly geek out on that stuff. But in the meantime, I do want to give a little plug to our next product chat. This is happening next Tuesday, May 11th, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. But we are talking to Francisco Brom. He's the head of Google product marketing at Uber. I had literally just, I don't even know how to say, like the luxury of seeing his deck. I mean, it was so tight and well put together. I mean, he talks about everything from creative ways to do audience listening, how to connect sort of these like fascinating user insights, and really the go to market strategy that he created was, I was blown away. So I hope that you guys can join us. I am going to pop this little link in the chat here now, just for anyone who's with us, if you guys have the opportunity. But in the meantime, Diane, thank you so much for letting us pick your brain and spend some time with you. We appreciate you. And for everybody else, we're here every Friday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern to answer all your product questions.
Yeah, thank you everybody for being here. And Callie, that sounds so cool. I hope I can attend that myself. Just wonderful.
It'll be a good one.
Thanks so much, everybody. Good luck with everything